All right, ready to rock and roll. All right, everyone see the screen? Yep. Click on here. Again, this is Simon Casades, team leader, managing broker for Keller Williams South Bay, and also broker of record for the Long Beach Coastal Office. Thank you again for being on the call. And we're going to get started with the escalation clause. You guys ready? Yes, absolutely. So what is an escalation clause? Okay. An escalation clause is a provision where a buyer offers to pay more for a property than another prospecting buyer without knowing the price offered by the other offer. So this is where it gets very interesting, right? And here's an example that we're using is the purchase price shall be $1,000 higher than any other offer. Also sometimes referred to a relative bid or sharp bid as well. So how it works is this, and a lot of listing agents will never divulge that information, right? And it's until you're in negotiations, you submit an offer, right? And one of the vitals and crucial components to your position is, one, asking a lot of questions, right? The more questions, the more insight you'll be able to position yourself, because the buyer doesn't want to pay more than what they should, right? Let's say that the property is listed for $875. Okay, been on the market for 5 days. Your assumption is what? Especially right now with the market being the way it is, interest rates at 6 3/4, almost 7%. You say that the property's on the MLS for only 5 days, right? You think you're going to just submit an offer at $875? I hope not. I hope you're picking up the phone and having a candid conversation with the listing agent, because we don't know how many offers, if any. We don't know the position. And the more you ask, the better position to really clean that offer. So that way you at least know if you have a very good chance of getting your offer accepted. Does that make sense? So this is how I would always encourage all of you to really be proactive in your engagement is pick up the phone. You already did your research. You got all of the information from the MLS, right? And now your buyer saw the property and is eager and is anticipating that we submit an offer. So how do you coincide with the escalation clause is really understanding how it works, because also it can backfire on you if you don't put standards and limitations to the escalation clause. And more so, what if there's another agent and buyer that also submits an escalation clause provision? How does that get handled? Well, I'm going to show you the ins and outs and how that works. Now, the tricky part is from the receiving agent that's involved in getting all these offers, right? You get offers submitted and you got 2 offers that have an escalation clause, or maybe 3 offers that have an escalation clause. How do you navigate those conversations, right? Well, again, you got to be very calculated in how you approach this, because if not, it can harm you and still potentially get you in a position where your offer may not be considered. This is why it's important that you have the conversation, pick up the phone, and at least getting some intel from the listing agent, okay? So, and again, please feel free to ask questions as we go. When are escalation clauses used and why are they used? Used when a buyer is make, if you can push out real quick, let's see, bam, here we go. So when are escalation clauses used and why? Used when a buyer is looking to make their offer stand out in a multiple offer or competitive market environment. Now, right now, the way the market is, we're not really seeing that many escalations. But guess what? Come 5 months from now, 6 months from now, what goes up eventually comes down, right? The interest rate are going to come down, and we're going to see a spike of more offers, more buyers in the market trying to buy and submitting offers. So you want to position yourself to at least understand how the dynamics of the escalation clause works. Okay, it allows the buyer to make the highest offer, but only by the minimum amount necessary to beat the other offer. Because if you don't know, what if you throw in at $50,000 or $60,000 above asking, right, when you didn't really have to? Does that make sense? Right? So navigating the conversation will give you some advantage to your position, and then writing the escalation provision on there. Now, what's so funny, what's so interesting, California doesn't have a form yet on an escalation clause, but you go to Nevada, you go to Arizona, guess what? They actually have their form that's created by the state real estate department. And their forms, like California forms, they have the actual escalation form. Here in California, we still don't. We have to navigate that and add it into the purchase agreement, or add an addendum to it. So going back to the conversation, right? The conversation is you're gonna reach out to the listing agent, right? And I'm gonna use, who wants to role play with me? Anyone? All right, thank you. All right, I was gonna pick on Kevin, but I know Kevin is he's too experienced to deal with this. I'm gonna leave him alone. All right, so I'm gonna be the agent. You're gonna be the listing agent, right? I'm gonna just ask general questions. Don't think that you need to know all of it, but I'm just gonna kind of role play with you. So ring ring.
Hello, Sam speaking.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Sam,
Hey, what's up, Sam? This is Simon over at KW. How are you?
very great. How are you?
Awesome, my man. Listen, congratulations on the listing that you got on 123 ABC. I see that it's listed at 875. It's been on the market for 5 days. Do you have any offers?
Yes, I do.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. How many offers do you have?
Currently we have 4 offers.
Okay, so you have 4 offers currently. Are they at or above asking?
There are 2 are above asking and 2 are at.
Okay, so you got 2 that are at asking at 875, and then you have 2 that are above asking. Can I ask you, Sam, how much higher than the asking is your highest offer that you have?
Highest offer is 40 above.
40,000 above. So that puts us at, what's my arithmetic on 875? So that puts us at what, 9010? Come on, anyone? So let's just say 910. So you got an offer of 910. How strong is that offer? Do they have all of the items that the seller is looking for on this offer?
Yes, pretty strong.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking is because my client saw the property, is very interested in submitting an offer. I just wanted to kind of get a pulse and a vitals on where you're at. So you got 4 offers, one that is over 900,000. Got it. How soon are you going to be presenting these offers to your client, the seller?
I'm looking to present it this weekend.
This weekend, okay. So this weekend, that puts us at what's today, Tuesday? So we got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Are you saying Saturday or Sunday you're going to be presenting the offers?
Saturday evening. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so have you ever heard of an escalation clause?
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about it.
Okay, and the reason is any of the offers that you have an escalation clause?
No.
No, okay. So are you going to counter any of these offers, or you're just gonna be, whoever brings me the highest offer?
We'll probably counter an offer too, yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna counter other offers as well? Okay, great. Is there any specifics that the seller is asking in regards to their offers?
Just looking to get the highest price.
Okay, highest price. They don't need to close quickly. They're not asking for a seller in possession after close of escrow, none of that?
No.
Okay, got it. Okay, well, my clients are very qualified. They're putting a 20% down. Both my clients, who is a husband and wife, the husband is a captain, and then his wife is a flight attendant for Delta Airlines. They both make really good money, and they want to be in this particular area because they're so close in proximity to the LAX airport. So that's their hub and they want to be within the area. And more so, they really like the school district for their small kids. And again, Sam, thank you so much. So we're going to be presenting an offer, and what we're going to do is we're going to include an escalation clause because again, we don't know what may trigger from now till Saturday when you're going to present the offers. And I just want to say, and I know you don't have the privilege to give me the answer, but if we were to go at at 9:25, would that trigger that the seller may accept before Saturday? Say no.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. I just needed to throw that out because I'm just trying to see if we can lock in the property before Saturday. And so in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to submit an offer with an escalation clause. We're going to go, an increment of $1,000 above any high offer, as long as you counter us and provide us with some information, because we want to make sure that it's a legitimate offer that you have, because again, the buyer doesn't want to overpay. It's a small young family. They're trying to get into this neighborhood, but they don't also want to overpay for something when they don't, even though they qualify up to $1 million. I just want to make sure that they at least have the opportunity to buy. Now, with that being said, Sam, there is also a cap on that. They're not willing to go anything above that as well. So that number will be 975. Okay. But we're not going to start at 975. We want to start off at $1,000 above the highest offer, which your highest offer is, I'm assuming right now, 910, right? If you get any other offers, then I just want to make sure that we're in increments that we are willing to go $1,000. So if you get another offer at 925, we'll go 926. If you get another offer at 930, we'll go 931. If we get another offer at 950, then we'll go 951. Does that make sense? So the cap is obviously 975. And, as long as you provide us with, proof that you do have additional offers, then we're golden. And then, we have that stipulation too on the appraisal contingency. We want to hold on to it. So that way the client doesn't get a surprise that, it doesn't appraise as well. So, so again, thank you for the information. Be on the lookout. I'll be submitting an offer in the next few hours.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. So there you go. Just a simple conversation. Now, is it going to go that crazy? Probably not. A savvy listing agent will probably not be so open to provide as much information. It all depends on who you're dealing with. Someone that is really wanting to take care of their client's best interest, right? They're going to at least try to push as much as possible to get their seller the most net that they can receive, right? Because obviously the higher the purchase price, the more they're going to net as well. And more so the agents benefit from a higher price point because it's based on a percentage of commission. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions so far on the escalation? Yes.
I noticed that you actually divulged up front how high they're willing to go to.
Yeah.
I guess whether it's verbally or whether it's in the contract, you would need to stipulate what that high end level is.
Absolutely. You want to know what the ceiling is. Yeah. Because if you don't put a ceiling, you can go up to $1 million. And if the if the seller accepts that, you may be in it for $1 million. Now, there's a lot of conditions and stipulations in the beginning, right? But you always want to have that ceiling, what the cap is, what is the most that the buyers are willing, what are the buyers comfortable going as high, right? Yes, that's one of the stipulations. Unfortunately, when it comes to an escalation clause, you're divulging the highest that they possibly feel comfortable. Does that mean that they are maxed out? No, because they may qualify for $1 million, but they're not willing to go that high. They're willing to just go to 975 or 950, right? But yes, you are definitely exposing the most that they're willing to go, even though we're starting at 875. Kevin.
When the market was crazy, a lot of sellers weren't accepting these.
Yep, 100%. You're 100%. So
they can bring the price higher without them.
So going and piggyback of what Kevin was saying, 100%, there was a lot of sellers and listing agents. As soon as they saw an escalation clause, they would say, you got to delete it, take it off. We're not going to entertain an escalation clause. Now it's a give and take, right? Not all agents and sellers will be accustomed or not familiar with it. There's benefits. There's what we call pros and cons to an escalation clause. The benefits is that, you know, obviously the buyer is in competition, but it's getting their offer considered, even though they don't know what that last number is until it caps, right? But at least you're not guessing also, right? What is the seller and how many offers do they have over asking, right? So it kind of eliminates the guessing, but it gives a increment and ultimately a cap where the buyer's still comfortable to really push without, you know, just throwing a number 30,000 or 40,000 above asking. Because during the pandemic time frame, there was 50,000, 100,000, 150, 200,000 above asking. It was bananas. It was bonkers because we had very low interest rate. The lower the interest rate, right, the more purchase power. So buyers were able to really scale that. And as Kevin was mentioning, yeah, there was a lot of listing agents that were not in agreement to accept a escalation clause. Now, it all really depends. If I was the listing agent, I would be fine with an escalation clause because I would be very transparent. Because I know that if I'm in negotiations with other buyers, I'm going to be very clear that I have, you know, 5 offers on the table. And then I would also be very transparent as well that I do have one that has an escalation clause with the maximum of 975 as well. Because why would I waste some agent's time that are going to make an offer of 950 when we know that this escalation one is going to be 951, if that makes sense. Now, the only way to get away from an escalation, because again, going back to the benefits of it, it helps the buyer get a property. That's all it is. Okay. If the listing agent and the seller say, look, we'll entertain any offers that come in, but if one of them has an escalation, then you need to have that striked or deleted as part of the agreement. And then now the buyer and the buyer agent have to make a decision is, okay, if they're not going to take our consideration, then we just got to do our best and final, highest and best. Okay. And that may be that you may be paying a little bit more. It's a gamble, but at least you'll know where you stand. Okay. So not all sellers and not all listing agents will entertain an escalation, but it is a benefit for you if you're representing a buyer that will at least keep you in the trenches and keep you in the negotiations. Okay. Buyers and sellers clients should be advised to always seek legal advice for any questions. Generally, yes, when drafting properly, escalation clause can be used to create a binding contract, right? And it's not one that is practiced heavily in California, but it is something that is allowed to do so. And it all really depends on the agent and their comfort level, right? Because let's just say we turn the tables around, right? All of you are the listing agent on this property. And not just one, but you got four offers that have an escalation on them. How do you navigate that conversation, right? You got 4 that have escalations, so they're back to back to back. One is saying increments of 1,000, the other one's saying increments of 5,000, the other one is saying increments of $10,000. How do you navigate that? That's going to be a little confusing. And I'm going to share a story that happened to one of the agents that was involved in 2 escalation provisions that ultimately they raised it because their ceiling and their cap was extremely high. Okay. And it ended up falling apart because it just didn't make any sense for the buyer to go that crazy because both put a very high cap of 150,000. 150, it was just ironic that they both had put a $10,000 increment and 150 above asking cap. So how do you navigate that conversation, right? When you got two offers that are side to side, right? And one is beating the other because now you're going all the way to 150,000. Do you see where I'm going with this, right? It can be a problematic situation and an issue, and the buyer may not think that they may happen. And when they get their offer accepted, it's like, what? We just paid for what? Yeah, well, because you had an escalation and you had a cap to 150,000 above asking. Unfortunately, someone else had the same situation, and now you're both in a bind. Kevin.
That's the one that removes the appraisal.
That's right. Now you got to be very creative, folks, in how you navigate that, because now we took care of one concern, right? Which is the price. But even if you're head to head with another escalation clause, you know, you're still with a predicament that both are still 150 above asking. Now you have to really dial in on your counters and really tighten up those conditions and terms. Where is the buyer willing to release loan contingency instead of 17 days, maybe 10 days? Appraisal contingencies, inspection contingencies, right? Are they willing to close sooner? Are they willing to put more down? Whatever that looks like, right? Because ultimately your job as a listing agent is to get the cleanest offer with the least amount of headaches to ultimately give the most net to your client, right? But you got to understand and how to maneuver those conversations, because it can be very stressful for the listing agent too when you have an escalation clause. It depends on how comfortable you feel with these clauses. Okay. Interesting facts here. So part of the segue is including a cap or maximum price, right? Buyer may offer X amount of dollars more than any other offer, but not to exceed a certain maximum price. Pros: limits the buyer's exposure when another buyer makes an outrageous higher offer. Con: reveals the maximum price at which the buyer is willing to buy. Seller may counter at that maximum price or use it as a leverage to get a higher offer, right? As you were saying, okay, you're exposing your client's highest offer. What's there to say that they don't use that as leverage? Hey, I got someone that's willing to go all the way to 975. Can you beat that? Well, you have someone that's willing to go up to 975. Now you just got to find someone that is willing to give you more than 975. And then that eliminates that escalation clause because that was their cap, right? So exposing that information leverages the listing agent to try to get the most for their client. Does that make sense? So there's pros and cons when it comes to these scenarios, right? Because it's not like you're hiding your negotiations. You know what your buyers are willing to go the highest, right? But now we're divulging that information. We're exposing that information to the listing agent and also to the sellers. Okay. Bottom line, buyers must decide if they want to include a cap and should always, again, seek legal advice about potential consequences as well, right? Remember, we're not the decision makers for your clients. They have to make the ultimate decision. They're the ones that are responsible. They're the ones that are going to be obligated. They're the ones that are going to be paying the mortgage. And it's pride of ownership of owning, real estate. What is the buyer willing to pay for the property? How bad do they want this property, right? Now, if they're not willing to gamble with their price, then you don't go with an escalation clause. That's simple. It's there as an option. It's there as an option. Okay. Including a floor or minimum price. Buyer may offer $1,000 or, $500 or $1,000 higher than any other offer received, whichever is greater. Pros, if no other offer, the seller can accept the buyer's offer and create what's called a binding agreement and acceptance. Cons. Buyer floor price could be higher than the next highest offer, including the escalation amount, causing buyer to pay more than would otherwise be. Bottom line, buyer must decide if they want to include a floor and should always again seek the legal advice, right? Now, we're not attorneys, we're not paralegals, we're not CPAs, we don't give taxation and obviously legal advice. And these are, again, right now, they're not utilized at a very high capacity, but during the time when the interest rates were super low, we started seeing, not much, but we did see a lot of escalation clause because they really wanted the property and they didn't want to lose. They had submitted multiple offers on previous properties and they did not get their offer accepted. So this was another clever way and avenue to really help secure that opportunity of getting their offer accepted. So requiring verification of their highest offer. Buyers should include a requirement that the seller provide proof. Here it is, folks, okay, of the highest offer. We're not going to take the listing agent's word that they have an offer that's this amount or higher, right? We want to see a legitimate evidence and proof that they do have this offer. Now, this is where there's a lot of misunderstanding, okay? And I hear this quite often where listing agents will not divulge how many offers, what the highest offer they have on the table. But if they are the listing agent and they sign in a listing agreement with the seller, on the listing agreement, it says in black and white that if anyone is inquiring on how many offers and what is the highest offer, that the listing agent will divulge that information. It's in black and white. So when an agent says, I cannot provide you, I'm not going to tell you what the highest offer is, they don't know the contract. Now, with that being said, if the seller instructs the listing agent or the seller's agent in writing not to divulge that information, then yes, the listing agent has the right not to provide any information on how many offers and what the highest offer they have.
So is that one of the reasons why agents during the pandemic would have said, change your offer and not have an escalation, because then they're not in a position where they necessarily have to divulge?
No, that was not the case. We were seeing some crazy offers come in, where that kind of propelled all these offers for non-contingent offers, one. And these were not even investors. These were consumers buying first-time homes, consumers that were buying their second home or maybe possibly the third homes, but they were not investors with the vision of ultimately buying it low, renovating and selling it for a profit. These were consumers that were going to buy the property and live in the property. So those dynamics of conversations were different than an investor going in there with the intent. It doesn't matter what the condition of the property looks like. I'm going to go in there, spend $150,000 renovating and then putting it back on the market. And I already kind of understand the elements of what it's going to cost me. No, these were consumers buying the property with the condition it was and releasing all of the contingencies in place, which was a big risk, because if the buyer did not perform right and the buyer decided to cancel, they were in jeopardy of forfeiting their earnest deposit. So there was risk involved in that parameter. So going back to your question, no, it wasn't during pandemic that a lot of the listing agents did not want to do escalation clause. It was it was very convoluted. And what I mean by convoluted is that most agents that are savvy, experienced agents didn't want to have that as a provision because it can be confusing if there was another offer that had the same stipulation with a escalation clause, and then how fair are you going to be? And that's like going back to my example that literally happened to one of the agents that had two escalation clause, and both had a cap of 150 above asking. And because both were runner up to each other, when they ultimately sent out the second counter offer releasing certain condition and they got their offer accepted, they realized, holy moly, we just spent over 150,000 above asking. And that can happen. That buyer ultimately ended up canceling because they were not in agreement to it. Then why do an escalation clause? Then why put a cap, right? This is where a lot of listing agents were just getting a bad taste because they're just doing it to do it with not really two legs to stand, basically. Because there were, and this is where you as a listing agent really have to ask the right questions. You're saying here on the offer that you're including an increment of $5,000 with a maximum of $75,000. I would be having the conversation with someone like Kevin and saying, Kevin, I just want to be crystal clear with you that your client is willing to go 75,000 above asking, right? Even though it may not go that high, but I cannot promise you that I won't get another offer that does have an escalation clause in place. I just want to make sure that you're okay. Then he's going to say, yeah, you know what? Our clients are solid and, you know, they really want the property. Okay, let's rock and roll. Okay. So requirement verification of the next highest offer. Buyer shall include a requirement that the seller provide proof of the highest offer received with the right to the contract that the other buyer or their agent to confirm the offer is in fact real. While agents are often uncomfortable handling over the other offers without the use of a confidential agreement, offers themselves are not confidential. They may be shared with other agents or prospecting buyers. Going back to the listing agreement, and I'll show you the provision, if you like, on the listing agreement that says that, you know, the listing agent can and shall provide you with how many offers, and what's the highest offer they have in place, okay? What if multiple offers include an escalation clause? Okay, this is the added provision that was not on the original presentation that this was provided back in I think it was 2020 or 2021. So they added this because we were getting a lot of multiple offers that included the escalation clause, ladies and gentlemen. Unlikely seller can just accept one of the offers with an escalation clause to create a contract. It may be impossible to determine purchase price. Seller would be well advised to use multiple counteroffers, okay? So two ways that you can approach this, guys, right? You got 5 offers coming in, right? 2 of those have an escalation clause. And I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I want to see it from a buyer's agent perspective, but I also want to see it from a seller's perspective as well, because it can impact both, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't want to kill the deal, right? We want to sustain this, close the deal so that everyone wins, right? The seller sells the property, the buyer buys the property, agents get paid their commissions for their hard work in facilitating the transaction. But it's really our responsibility to educate our clients and how and when. If you're not very comfortable articulating that conversation, then I don't encourage you to illustrate or use this as an example. We're going to go with an escalation clause, because what happens quite often is that the buyer will start pointing fingers. Well, I didn't understand what you were saying, Simon. Okay, and when it comes to those type of conversation, it gets a funny feeling in your stomach. Okay, something was not guided correctly, was not properly advised properly, and that can go in a direction you just don't want to go. So be very cautious if you are going to use a provision that has an escalation provision on the offer. Okay, again, going back to the pros and cons, there's benefits and there's disadvantages as well. Okay, seller would be well advised to use the multiple counter offers. So yeah, of course, with any offers that are more than one, you're always going to use the multiple counter offer. That's a given. The minute that you have more than one offer, immediately the SCMO, the seller multiple counter offer, needs to be included. The reason is because if you use the seller counter offer, then in the eyes of the buyer's agent and the buyer is that you are just in negotiations with one party. And there's specific language on the multiple counter offer says that even if we send you this multiple counter offer, doesn't mean that the seller will still accept your offer. It has to be agreed upon by the seller and signed and executed of the acceptance. This is what you want to protect yourself from a listing standpoint, is that you're not just sending the buyer. And you know how many times I've seen it's like, oh gosh, you just sent the wrong counter to the buyer. Okay, if they accept it, then ultimately you might be in a binding agreement with that buyer when your intentions were not to be in agreement with this particular buyer. It was supposed to be the other. Whoever signs and executes and accepts, then ultimately you have to open escrow with. Okay, because the buyer has recourses after if the wrong counter offer was not provided. Risk management concerns. Buyers should always be advised to speak with their own legal counsel prior to making any offer with an escalation clause. Brokers may adopt a policy discouraging the use of escalation clause. Now, I could definitely put something in writing and put it as part of the policy, just like we have certain conditions here. But some agents are very savvy. They know the ins and outs and they feel comfortable. So that way the company is perfectly fine if you're going to use an escalation clause. Okay. It's by company, right? It's by policy. Some brokerages will say no escalation to be done because it is a risk management issue. It could lead up to a potential liability. And ultimately what it falls down to is that the buyer did not know what they were doing. And that happens quite often. Adopt a policy that agents may not draft the escalation clause, require the buyer to use their own attorney to draft such clause. So basically it ties us away from that potential risk factor. We're not encouraging it, but if they want to speak with legal and they want to draft something to be added as part of the offer, then if something goes sideways, they cannot blame us for it. Well, your attorney advised you, your attorney said it was perfectly fine, you agreed to it, and we have a paper trail that says that you were in agreement to get this escalation as part of the agreement. And now that you're paying $200,000 above what you felt comfortable, you know, what would you like me to do? Does that make sense? Okay, so you got to be very, very careful. Additional resources, obviously through the California Association of Realtors, you can get a PDF of what we call the quick guide. And then also there's a legal Q&A that you can also get through the California Association. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. And here's the escalation. Here's the guide. Oh, it didn't populate, unfortunately. All right. It did it on my computer, but it didn't do it on yours. So it goes again, what is an escalation clause? What is the cap? You know, so it talks about similar to the presentation as we just touched on right now. Okay. Any thoughts, questions, or concerns regarding the escalation clause? Anyone on Zoom? Is everyone pretty familiar with the escalation clause? Is anyone comfortable to submit an offer with an escalation clause?
I wasn't extremely familiar with it, but I was a little bit familiar with it, and I've never put together an offer with that. But the extras that the additional information that you shared actually was really enlightening and helpful, because I wondered about things that you hadn't shared yet, and then all of a sudden you answered the questions before I asked them.
Yeah.
So it was just really helpful, and I can see where during the pandemic market how those were used many times. But it's good to know, because like you said, the market goes up and down and everything, and I would want to be prepared. But it's all the little details that you shared were really helpful. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gina, for always adding your feedback. It's always appreciated. So I'm going to quickly just show you on the listing agreement RLA. Okay, so on Zoom, can you see the contract? Just want to make sure you guys are seeing it as well. So there's a provision on the listing agreement. When you're going on a listing appointment, right? You got the listing agreement, the exclusive right to sell. There's a section, and I don't remember exactly where that's provision is. It's going to take me a little bit to find it, but it says that if anyone is inquiring about how many offers and what the highest offer, that the agent is responsible to provide that information. I just got to find it again. I used to, when they change, every time they change it, it throws me off. And I tend to forget where they add it, because sometimes it could have been paragraph 7B, and then that 7B becomes 9B. So there is language in here that says that if anyone is inquiring, sellers aware of notice of no brokers diligent to achieve the proper list, brokers authorized not to report disclosure. I just wanted to share that. Oh, here it is. All right, so under paragraph 10, broker and seller's duties. Okay, under paragraph 10A, broker responsibility and authority and limitations. It says the following: broker agrees to exercise reasonable effort and due diligence to achieve the purpose of this agreement, meaning the listing agreement, unless the seller gives broker written instructions to the contrary. Broker is authorized but not required to order reports and disclosures, including those specified in 10E as an ever as necessary. 2, advertise and market property by any method in any medium selected by the broker, including the multiple listing service and the internet, and to extend permit by these media's control of the information submitted to any medium. And 3, disclose to any real estate licensee making an inquiry the receipt of any offers on the property and the offering price of such offers. There it is. I'm going to repeat it. Disclose to any real estate licensee. So obviously you have to be a licensed agent to be able to say, hey, how many offers do you have? Hey, what is the highest offer you have? It's in black and white. If the listing agent and the seller sign this, they're bound by this agreement. It's in black and white. Disclose to any real estate licensees making an inquiry the receipt of any offers on the property and any offering price of such offers. Okay. It doesn't get any clearer than that, right? So when an agent says to you, and this is where you can be very savvy, is like, hey, you know what? How many offers do you have? Well, I cannot divulge that information. Or don't you just hate when they say, well, it's north of the asking price? And you're trying to pull this information is, why can't you be honest and just tell me what the offers you have? Right? It's only going to benefit you and your client if you really think about it. I don't know why agents' mindset is different. If I was the listing agent, believe me, I'm going to tell you, hey, Sam, hey, Salvador, hey, John, hey, Steve, hey, Christine, I have 5 offers. One is at $875, 2 are at $895, 1 is at $1 million, okay? Why am I devoting that information is because I want to know if they're in the game to play and give us a strong offer. Don't waste our time. You don't tell me that information as an example, right? Then I'm going to end up throwing a low offer and it's a waste of time me opening up the email, dissecting the offer when I could have been crystal clear with the buyer's agent and said, hey, here's what we got. It shows on the listing agreement, and you can use this as ammunition, folks. When someone says, I cannot divulge that, okay. Do you understand paragraph 10A of the RLA? What do you mean, Simon? Oh yeah, there's a provision that says that if a licensee, I'm a licensed real estate broker, inquiring about how many offers you got and what the highest offer, you need to divulge that information. Well, I don't believe you. I don't have to. Well, pull up the listing agreement that you executed with the seller and tell me what paragraph 10A says. Now you've got them on the hook. Now, also with that, it says that if in writing, right? Now, if they're savvy and they say to you, well, I have written instruction by the seller not to give you that information. Okay, you're bound by that. Unfortunately, it is the seller's instructions. Remember, you work for the seller just as much as you work for the buyer, right? So if they divulge that and they say, unfortunately, the seller's instructions not to divulge how many offers and what is the highest offer we have, then unfortunately we cannot provide that information. All right. And this is straight from the listing agreement under paragraph 10A, folks.
Is that common?
What's common?
To divulge by the seller not